The Grenlec Debates. Power, bright ideas.
Welcome once again to the 2023 edition of the Grenlec Debates. This is the fourth round of competition, the semi-finals. Following this round, 2 teams will enter the finals. Therefore, we invite you to sit back, relax, and watch our debaters explore ideas and think on their feet. Please bear in mind that these debates are impromptu. The students are given the broad theme to research prior to the match. Then, on match day, they randomly select their motions and are given 30 minutes to prepare their presentation without assistance from their teachers or electronic channels. The theme for this round is the Grenada Revolution, the areas of focus, the achievements of the Grenada Revolution, and the demise of the Grenada Revolution. I am Ambrosia Charles, your chairperson and former Grenlec debater. I call this house to order. This match is between Grenada Boys Secondary School and Hillsborough Secondary. The motion is, be it resolved that the promises of the Grenada Revolution were realized. For the proposition, Grenada Boys Secondary School. For the opposition, Hillsborough Secondary School.
The Grenada Revolution was a testament to the power, unit, and potential of ordinary people to bring about meaningful change. The words of Mr. Rodney Walters, a Guyanese historian and political activist. Esteemed judges, members of the audience, worthy opponents, comrades, good afternoon all. It is with the utmost feeling of pride and unwavering passion that we, the proposition, vigorously support the moot, be it resolved that the promises of the Grenada Revolution were realized. As first speaker, I will diligently define key terms in the moot and expound on 2 undisputably pivotal points, which are culture and arts and youth empowerment through education. My second speaker will further present 2 indispensable points, which are agrarian reform and the rights of women. This will facilitate in cementing our stance on the moot. Promise, an indication of future success or good results. Revolution is a forcible overthrow of a government or social order in favor of a new. Realize, to be fully aware of something, all according to the Oxford English Dictionary. My worthy comrades, we have fought for transformation, fought for equality, and fought for development. And we succeeded through the revolution. Esteemed judges, I'd like to address one of the promises of the Grenada Revolution that were realized. That is, culture and arts. Before the New Jewel movement assumed office, they rallied the importance of Grenada's culture and the preservation of our fine arts. When they assumed office, they sought to shed light on the importance of our culture and art within our society. They aimed at empowering local talents and to display Grenada's rich heritage. To illustrate, the government created the Grenada Film Unit. This was aimed at developing our film industry and giving the Grenadian filmmakers a platform to showcase their talent. The film unit went on to produce numerous notable productions, such as Forward Ever, The Killing of the Revolution, and Remembering the Future, the most recent being The House on Cocoa Road, which was produced in 2016. Let's explore the promise of youth empowerment through education that was realized. According to Mr. George Cherubin, former PRA soldier and close friend to the late Morris Bishop, he stated that one of the most memorable slogans during the revolution was education is a right, not a privilege. And this was undeniably evident throughout the revolution. The government used education as a stepping stone to reach our youthful population. This was accomplished by the implementation of many education-driven initiatives, such as the Center for Popular Education. This was a vocational and technical training institute aimed at benefiting our people. According to Mr. Wayne Williams, over 100 Grenadians received scholarships to countries such as Cuba, some notable features being Dr. Terence Marichaud and Mr. Lennox Andrews, Government Minister for Economic Development. Audience, esteemed judges, to answer your question, yes, the promises during the Grenada Revolution were realized. And to you, my worthy opponents, I thank you.
Esteemed judges, honorable chair, most prompt timekeeper, worthy opponents, audience, good afternoon to you all. It is with unwavering conviction that my team and I stand against the moots, be it resolved that the promises of the Grenada Revolution were realized. As first speaker, I will outline irrefutable reasons as to why we believe the promises of the Grenada Revolution were not realized. These are detention without trial, human rights violation, as suspension of the Constitution. My second speaker will further exemplify lack of democratic processes and restriction of the press as it pertains to how the promises of the Grenada Revolution were not realized. We dismiss the proponents' definitions and provide our own in further enlightenment of the moods. According to Oxford Dictionary, Grenada is a Caribbean island with the southernmost islands of the Grenadines. Revolution is a forcible overthrow of a government or social system. A promise is an assurance that you will do or not to do a certain thing. Realize, to be fully aware of something, to accept something as a fact. Esteemed judges, I urge you not to be blinded by the proponent's statements. The truth shall set you free, and the facts will always win. Worthy opponents, during the 1979 to 1983 revolution, the Constitution was suspended. Our rights to freedom were taken from us. As stated by Dr. Lawrence A. Joseph, the suspension of the Constitution led to the People's Revolutionary Government, PRG, ruling by decree and could imprison without judicial check. And our proponents still argue that the promises of the revolution were recognized. Dr. Joseph further stated that the suspension of the Constitution led to internal conflicts, a further problem that violated the promises that were established by the PRG. Worthy proponents, if we were promised such equality, then why were persons detained without trial? According to Hopevale Detention Center, 718 people were detained with no windows. Innocent people were disgraced, starved, tortured, and killed. And the proponents argue that the promises of the revolution were realized. Judges, if we were promised equality, why, my proponents, were our rights violated? Political opponents and dissenting voices were silenced. According to a history book by Dr. Nicole Philip Dow, the PRG shut down the Torchlight newspaper, and that is only one example. Worthy proponents, where was the so-called freedom that you stated the PRG aimed to achieve? Judges, proponents, honorable chair, the promises of the Grenada Revolution realized? I think not. Hence the reason my all-seeing team and I stand against the moots, be it resolved that the promises of the Grenada Revolution were realized. I strongly thank you.
You can kill a revolutionary, but you can never kill the revolution. Our definition stand. Good morning, comrades. My team and I boldly support the moots, be it resolved that the promises of the revolution were realized. Distinguished comrades, do not allow your exceptional minds to be swayed by our opponent's devious notions. As the second speaker of the most impeccable proposition, I will liquidate any poisonous darts of misconception, cementing two vital points to bolster my team's unshakable stance on this debate. Opponents, allow me to eloquently elaborate on my first point, being agrarian reform. Listen keenly, for I shall make this crystal clear. The Grenadian Revolution saw promises such as agrarian reforms. Land redistribution was a key component in addressing pressing issues of land ownership and landlessness. This allowed for more people to access land for agriculture. Agriculture in our region, comrades, immensely aided in the economy of numerous islands. A brief example to support agriculture partnered with agrarian reform is found in Jamaica. Statistics states the agriculture sector added value to the gross domestic product of Jamaica, which increased by 98.3 million US dollars in 2022. Still doubting? Remember our chocolate industry? It promotes exceptional agricultural development. Grenada is known for its superior dark quality chocolate and local ingredients, which is a true beam to chocolate makers. This is why, comrades, the promise of agrarian reforms were realized, and as to why we profoundly believe the promises of the Grenada Revolution were recognized. Still not swayed? Fear not. Allow me to expound on yet another point, targeting women's rights. Comrades, you should have been aware women were greatly discriminated. Certain occupations were barred from women. They were dedicated, but were paid a fraction of what men were. This happened in Grenada. The revolution promised to empower all women, promised laws and policies, promoted gender equality and women's participation. Opponents, can't you see these promises were recognized in the past and today? Women's borough played crucial roles in advocating women's rights. To say promises weren't realized is deceiving. Distinguished comrades, this is why increased women's rights should be seen as realized promises. We firmly believe promises were made by the Grenada Revolution and were realized. Long live the Revel! I thank you.
Good afternoon, all. We stand by our definitions. Esteemed judges, the promises of the Grenada Revolution were not realized. Worthy proponents, a history book by Dr. Nicole Philip Dow stated that there was a lack of democratic processes. The book stated, on taking office, the People's Revolutionary Government, PRG, promised free and fair elections in the first year of the revolution. However, this did not happen, an internal flaw in itself. The leadership claimed that they were engaged in the building of a true democracy, but in reality, power flowed down, not up. The book went on to state that the PRG claimed they feared the process will be rigged, and they say Prime Minister Bishop was a man for the people. If our healthcare was so strong, my opponent, why were our citizens exhausted? Children were taken out of schools to do adult work like serving in the revolution. And you say this is fairness, my opponent? The healthcare system suffered from a lack of investment due to military spending. The revolution's policies did not adequately address the issues of infrastructure, equipment, and human resources, preventing the improvement of the healthcare system which was promised to us. And the straw that broke the donkey's back. Dr. Nicole's book also went on to state that in October 1979, the PRG shut down the operations of the Torchlight newspaper. The government felt that the paper was consciously printing destabilizing literature on the policies and practices of the government. In May 1981, a group of 26 businessmen stated creating another newspaper, the Grenadian Voice. The paper was closed by the PRG because it criticized the Gary government for its restrictions of the media, but they found themselves making the same mistake. And you say promises have been fulfilled? Opponents, to shut up the press is to shut up a means of communication of the nation. It is on these solid facts my most educated colleagues and I stand against the resolution, be it resolved that the promises of the Grenada Revolution have been realized. Opponents, you and your baseless claims have been overthrown. I thank you.
Worthy proponents, you stated that education was improved, but with the abolishment of school fees, the government struggled as they weren't receiving funds from school, which led to economic decline.
My worthy opponent, education increased because many schools were created like the TMI Community College, which is the only community college, and schools like Grenville Secondary. Grenadians even got scholarships to go to Cuba to study, and then they came back to Grenada and helped our education system.
But worthy opponents, where were the funds to achieve other goals that the revolution promised to do, my opponent? Where were these funds coming from if we are not achieving the funds from school fees and education was very popular during this period?
My word, opponent, we had the funds. If we didn't have the funds, how would many of
We
our...
did not have the funds, my opponent.
So if we didn't have the funds, how would,
May I finish what
how
the
would they
opponents?
sponsor students to go to Cuba to get
Was
scholarships?
the opponent that money came from the Cubans, not the Grenadians?
No, my
The
word,
Grenadians promised this, my opponent, not the Cubans. Hence the reason the promises were not realized. They were
My
not
word,
realized, my
Grenadians
opponent.
give-
Next question,
my
my
word,
opponent. Next question, my opponent. What the proponents? How can you say that the promises of the Grenada Revolution were realized when he promised free and fair elections, but this did not happen until after the revolution? Where was our equality? Where was the democracy promise?
My word, opponent, while that may not have happened, that was just a minute thing.
Minute
It
when
was-
they
that was only
promised
one
it,
thing.
my
There were
opponents?
there were many other positives, like improved healthcare, education.
What your opponent? So
improved
you are
infrastructure.
ignoring the
I am
disadvantages
not-
that
I am
occurred
not
in the revolution.
ignoring it.
What your opponent?
It is
What your opponent,
minute
do you
compared to the
acknowledge-
positives.
What your opponent? Do you acknowledge?
Yes,
the
I
things that happen?
acknowledge the
Yes, my opponent. So you
minute-
agree with us, my opponent.
I
Next
am-
question.
how am I agreeing to
Next
that?
question, my opponent.
What the proponents? How can you say agriculture was improved if Hurricane Allen took place? The government didn't.
Didn't seek to improve this after the revolution.
My word, opponent, that was after the revolution. During the revolution, we had the formation of the NM.
No, we did not, my
MNIB.
opponent.
We had the formation of the MNIB, my word,
And
opponent.
it was not being effective, my opponent.
It was, my word,
If it was
opponent.
so effective, why is it not here to this day, my opponent?
It is, my
if
word,
it was
opponent.
so
It is-
effective, if this achievement was so well recognized, where is it today, my
It
opponent?
is right here in Grenada, my word, opponent.
No, it is not. With the
We don't-
opponent.
we
It
have
was shut
about-
down.
we
In the
ha-
island of Carriacou, it was shut down, my opponent.
That is in Carriacou, not Grenada.
But
We have-
Carriacou, so you're saying Carriacou
Honorary-
should not be included, my
I
opponent?
never said
Is
that.
that what you're
Carriacou
saying, my
got
opponent?
electricity during the revolution, my word, opponent. Who said Carriacou was excluded? Comrades, the revolution saw significant infrastructural projects like the very Morris Bishop International Airport, which hosted your arrival. It also saw the implementation of electricity in your home, Carriacou. How wasn't the promise realized?
Firstly, with the opponents, may I state that the Maurice Bishop International Airport was not finished being constructed in the revolution.
But
it finished
it was-
afterwards, my
But
opponent.
it was started if it wasn't for the revolution.
No,
Well,
what the opponent,
it
that is
was
not the
start-
case
it
because
was
the
started
Pearls
in-
Airport was the original foundation that led them to create
Yes,
the airport.
and the reason they
Exactly,
created
my
that is
opponent.
because the Port Airport could not host large flights. If they could only host small flights, what happened to the economy? I've minute amount of people be able to come in.
Exactly,
Moving
what
on
happened to the
next
economy?
question.
The
Moving on to
economy
the
was
next question.
declining.
Exactly, my word,
That's
opponent.
what-
That
The
is why
economy
the
was
implement-
declining, and
That
that
is
was
why
one of
the
the promises of
international
the
airport was
revolution,
built to-
and it
to
was
boost
not
economic
realized.
development.
That is
But
what-
the opponent, the promise was not realized
How
because,
was it realized?
as
We
your
have
first
moving
speaker
on to the next
stated,
question.
as your first speaker stated, the economy was developing, but you have just stated that it was not.
How? My word, opponent, I never stated that.
Was
Moving
it
on
in
to the
my-
next
Moving on to the
question.
next question. My worthy opponent, your first speaker brought up the fact that the constitution was suspended. Now, while that may be true, are you aware that the constitution was replaced by a series of people's law?
Yes, but the opponent, but the constitution was way more effective than that of such.
Are
The
you
constitution was more effective.
But it-
had all our
So
rights,
people's law are
our
not,
rights
people's,
to
not, people's law are not important?
So what the
Your
opponent,
human rights
what
are
the
not
opponent, if the
important?
people's laws were being put into action, then why were we still detained without trial?
My word, opponent,
Why?
people's law were replaced with that. Are you saying people's
what
law
the
are not
opponent-
important?
if the laws was-
Or people's law are not important?
Yes, they are. What the opponent,
Thank
what,
you, my
what
word,
the
opponent.
opponent.
Moving on to the next question.
My worthy opponent, your second speaker said that children were taken out of school, but this is not true. Students willingly wanted to partake in the transformative agenda of the revolution.
But what the opponent, the government aimed for equality of all people, and children were supposed to be empowered, as your second speaker stated.
My worthy opponent, that is
what the
unrelated to the
what the opponent,
question.
may I finish? May I finish? What the opponent, if this was the case, children were being dragged out of schools by
They were not.
influence of the government.
They
By
choose- it was a
influence of the
youth-led
government.
it was
And the
a
government-
youth-led
the government
revolution.
did not promise this.
So
what
the government
opponent.
would lead people to fight against them? No, my word,
It
opponent.
clearly seems so, my opponent, based on the facts stated by your first and second speaker, that has been
led
the
the
case.
revolution and
That
started their
has
own
been the
government
case based on the
in the
speeches
form of
by your
youth
first and second
empowerment.
speaker.
Moving on to the
my
next
opponent.
question. The revolution made healthcare more accessible through the construction of clinics, inclusive of free dental services and improved healthcare infrastructure. Isn't this a promise that was... I thank you.
Good afternoon, one and all. We reaffirm with uttermost certitude to contradict the motion, be it resolved that the promises of the Grenada Revolution were realized. The first speaker of the proposition stated youth empowerment was a valid point. However, as my second speaker already highlighted, our youths were strained, overworked as youths were leaders in the Grenada Revolution. Were the proponents, this is not empowering youths. The first speaker of the proposition also claimed that culture and arts improved, but our proponents also said our students left Grenada. Were the proponents? I think you are confused. Additionally to this, our proponents gave inaccurate facts to back this up. The second speaker of the proposition further argued the point, women's rights. However, my first speaker clearly expounded on the fact, human rights violation. Our rights were violated. How is this a promise? It is not. The second speaker of the proposition also confidently stated the year 2022. What has 2022 got to do with the Grenada Revolution? It was from 1979 to 1983. The second speaker of the proposition also argued that agriculture improved. But what the proponents, during the period of the revolution, Hurricane Allen took place, destroying agriculture. Where are these promises you are talking about? What the proponents, your debate meets a dead end. And simply because suspension of the Constitution, human rights violation, detention without trial, restriction of the press, and lack of democratic processes show us that the promises of Grenada were not realized. This is why I thank you.
Good afternoon, all. Comrades on the other side, it is my duty today to unveil the wool that cloaks your opposing vision, for you are sailing a sinking ship that holds your argument. I begin with a reference to your first speaker's point, that being detentional trial. However, this may be true, comrades, but I ask, what does this have to do with opposing the moot? The revolution never promised complete, utter peace, did it? Many referred to the revolution as the peaceful revolution. Furthermore, as my first speaker stated, the revolution promised educational opportunities and it delivered. Grenville Secondary, a school built during the revolution. Scholarships were given during the revolution and many were educated. Is this not a promise the revolution fulfilled? Furthermore, your first speaker laid out that rights violation occurred during the revolution. Opponents, you say that rights were suspended, but may I ask, what about the thousands of people who united in support of the revolution? If you were oppressed by something, would you boldly support it? No, you wouldn't. How can you say that rights were violated when people were willingly for the revolution, silenced, absolutely foolish? Finally, with the first speaker debunked, I move on to the second speaker's point, which is a lack of democratic processes. Comrades, the revolution was executed due to the harsh rule from Sir Eric Gairy, Mongoose Gang, a violent gang controlled by the GULP. Would you not overthrow a tyrannical leader in favor of a more peaceful rule? If you say yes, would you let rules stop you despite the damning problems said leader provides? No, you wouldn't.
The winner is Grenada Boys Secondary School. Congratulations on winning this match and being a finalist in the 2023 Grenlec debates. Thank you for joining us. Do tune in again for a complete coverage of the finals.
The Grenlec debates. Powered Bright Ideas.